to the Ringer NFL show. Sheil Kapadia here with Steven Ruiz. Our guy Deontay Lee is under the weather, so he's not joining us tonight. Deontay, get well soon, my friend. He will be back, hopefully, for the Sunday night show. Ruiz, you got something to say, it looks like.
Yeah, earlier today, I had a little chili for lunch, and I decided to buy a fresh jalapeno and to chop it up, to spruce up my chili.
Yeah.
And then like 10 minutes later, I washed my hands, but then I rubbed my eye, and then my eye was just burning. It was burning for like 30 minutes. It just felt like it was on fire. And I showed up and did the pod. Deontay, what is he? He's got a little cold? No, I'm kidding. Get well soon, Deontay.
I thought okay. So I was very close to doing a solo episode today, which would not have gone well because there is a lot to cover. So this is the preview show. We're of course going to talk about Week 14. We're going to talk Chargers Chiefs. We're going to talk NFC West. We're going to make our picks for the week. However, Ruiz and I just got finished watching Lions-Packers, fantastic game that lived up to the hype. Lions win 34-31 on a last-second field goal by Jake Bates from 35 yards out. But Ruiz, we got to start with the moment that everyone's going to be talking about, that, oh my goodness, if they did not convert, I don't know what the discourse would be. 43 seconds left. Lions drive down the field. They hit Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's short. It's 3rd and inches. David Montgomery gets stopped. And so 43 seconds left from the Packers' 21-yard line. Dan Campbell calls timeout. The game is tied. Everywhere you look, this is not analytics, whatever, common sense, former players, former coaches, analysts, whoever is saying, okay, even I say you got to kick the field goal here. Kick the field goal, go up 3. The Packers get the ball back with under 40 seconds and no timeouts. Worst case scenario, you're going to overtime. So he calls timeout. Then they go, wait, he's putting the offense back out there. Oh, he's probably just trying to draw them off sides. No, they call a play. Jared Goff falls down, gets stepped on by Graham Glasgow, somehow gets the handoff to David Montgomery, who picks up the first down, and Dan Campbell leaves no doubt. They kick the field goal with zeros on the clock and come away with the victory. What was your reaction as that was all unfolding? Oh,
man, I loved it. I loved every second of it. And how coaches are always talking about these 4th down models, and they're like, well, you can't account for the pace of the game, the flow of the game, personnel, the injuries and all that. And I feel like that's what Dan Campbell, that's how he kind of approached this decision. He's like, yeah, most teams should just kick the field goal there, but I have Penei Sewell. And I can just call the run play over Penei Sewell, and I know I'm going to get a first down here. And that's exactly what happened. It was honestly the most impressive play that Jared Goff made all day, getting that handoff off, because that could have been a disaster. Imagine the reaction if that's how that play ended, and that's how the Lions end up losing that game. But I know the numbers, all of the 4th down bots said they should have kicked the field goal, but with the way Jordan Love was kind of throwing the football and those receivers on Green Bay and Matt LaFleur drawing up the plays, I feel like it wouldn't have been the safest option. I feel like Green Bay would have had a good chance of going down there and tying that game up if they had given them the chance. If they had it would have been 40 seconds left. So I kind of get it from that standpoint, but just from a philosophical, this is who we are. This is what we do. We're the Lions. If we're going to win the Super Bowl, we got to be able to get a half a yard with this offensive line. I loved it.
It was, the thing is, I'm glad you brought that up about coaches, because sometimes when they are not aggressive, when they should be, that is their response. There's, well, you guys don't know, but, our right guard and X, Y, and Z and all these things. And that argument can have some merit. But the reason why I'm always I don't know, does that have merit? Is because so rarely does someone do the opposite, where they go, this was not an analytical decision. No. Like you said, this was, I'm feeling this. I don't want to leave any chance for Jordan Love to, complete 2 20-yarders, and all of a sudden they're kicking a field goal, and now we're in overtime and there's the coin flip. No, this is, I'm going to lean on the strength of my team. I believe we can get it. We've already gone for 4 4th downs this game, and we're not even going to give him an opportunity to get the ball back. And Dan Campbell goes for it there. I really don't think, and I'm thinking about this as I said, I don't think there's another coach in the NFL that goes for it in that situation. I really can't think of a single other coach in the NFL who goes for it right there. And, when he makes that decision, he knows he's got to live with it. Like you said, if Jared Goff does not get that handoff off and the Green Bay Packers complete a couple passes, kick the game-winning field goal, and it cost the Lions home field advantage in the playoffs. I mean, that's like an all-time play in Detroit Lions history, for the worst, an infamous play in Detroit Lions history. So I love that he's got the guts to do it. I love that he knows the stakes. I think you see it from the team that they always want to go for it. There's guys like Tim Patrick's like pointing to the sidelines at times in this game, like, go for it, go for it. And they went for it a bunch in this game, and it paid off in a big way. They had the one fail from their own 30-yard line where they get stopped in the third quarter. That leads to a Packers touchdown. But other than that, before halftime, 4th and goal, go for it, touchdown. Third quarter, 4th and 1 near midfield, go for it, sneak. On that same possession, 4th and goal again, goes for it, touchdown to Tim Patrick. And then 4th and inches, 43 seconds left, goes for it again and gets it. So we know what the Lions' identity is. You know, you have great teams, and then you have great teams where you know exactly what they are, and we know exactly who they are.
That's exactly who they were, like, all night long. Like, for the first 59 minutes and 20 seconds of this game, they were the same team. And that's what decided the game ultimately, is that the fact that they could run, they could do what they do on offense. They can run on 1st and 2nd down, or just, you know, do those quick passes, the quick game, and get to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and medium. And for them, that's a rundown. They're the only team in the NFL where that's a rundown. And that puts so much stress on a play caller. You can't, because like you're playing a quarterback like Jared Goff, typically like that makes it easier on a coordinator. Jared Goff doesn't scramble at all. He's like one of the least, he's most averse to scrambling, more so than I think like Matthew Stafford's the only one that scrambles less than him. So having that like 50-50, we can run the ball here, we can pass the ball here, really like limits what a defensive coordinator could do. And you saw just Ben Johnson do a masterful job of taking advantage of that game script all night long. Like he on 3rd down, how many screens did he call?
Yeah. And they're all executed so well. Yeah. Yeah.
Jared Goff's ADOT on 3rd down was 2.4 yards. 2.4 yards on 3rd down. Like, that's insane. That's like not what we're used to in the NFL. In the NFL, 3rd down is a passing down. It's an obvious passing down. It's the hardest situation to play in. And for Jared Goff, it was honestly the easiest situation to play in. He just had to find Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was open somewhere on the field. And I mean, if you can't get Detroit out of their game script, they're hard to beat. But my main takeaway from this game, and I don't know, I wonder what yours is that Green Bay's right there. And I don't think the gap between the Lions and the rest of the NFC is as wide as maybe the numbers and their record suggest. I think Green Bay could have won this game very easily. Obviously, if Jared Goff slips, they win the game. If Christian Watson doesn't get called for the pass interference, maybe the game gets changed. If he doesn't fumble after that catch and run, maybe the game gets changed. If they don't get called for that unnecessary roughness call on the first play of first drive of the game where they would have settled for 3. So, like, I think it's the Eagles, the Packers, and the Lions, and it's hard to separate them. Honestly, I think it comes down to the matchup. I think the Packers would beat the Eagles. I think the Eagles would beat the Lions, and I think the Lions would beat the Packers again.
Yeah, I'm with you with those 3 teams. You know, I think that's what it comes down to in the NFC, and I think it's Ravens, Chiefs, and Bills in the AFC. I wrote it on the Ringer this week that I think those are the 6 teams that can win the Super Bowl. I'm with you. The Packers were right in this game, and you saw, you know, Jordan Love only completes 3 passes in the first half, and then the second half he just catches fire, that touchdown pass to Tucker Kraft, and you know, you're right that I can sort of see Campbell in his head going like, I don't want to give that. I just don't want to give them an opportunity to complete a couple passes and be in field goal range there. You know, if that's another team, if that's another offense, if that's another quarterback, maybe he doesn't make that decision. So yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot separating these 2 teams. I mean, I actually thought, and this sounds crazy to say as I'm looking at the box score, like, I thought the Packers defense played pretty well in this game. Yeah. I mean, and then you look at it and the Lions had 27 first downs and 280 yards. But like, I don't know, they made some big plays in some high leverage spots. Now those 4th downs, they didn't get it done. And those are the highest of leverage spots. But I didn't come away from this going, oh man, the Packers defense got lit up. I was like, they competed, they kept the offense in the game. And like, sometimes there's only so much you can do when you're going up against a great offense. So I'm with you. I think if you're a Packers fan, you had that outside hope of, man, if we win this game, maybe we still have a shot at winning the NFC North. Now you're 3 games back of the Lions, so that's not going to happen. So you're going into the playoffs as a wild card team. Your path's going to be harder. You mentioned the other 2 teams, the Lions and the Eagles, like they may have to go on the road and beat Lions and the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl. Hard path, but not like an impossible path. Like, I think they're good enough to be able to do that. So I think you feel pretty good if you're a Packers fan too.
Yeah, the only thing I'm worried about is like the defense. Please, for the love of God, defend an inbreaker. It's like every big throw was the same route over and over again to the same part of the field. But it's just a testament to this offense and how good it is all around. That the fact that Ben Johnson can dial up those passes over and over and over again. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And the reason you can't do anything to stop it is because you have to do other things to stop the run game, which leaves you open to those throws over the middle. Like, this team is just so good. It's a well-oiled machine right now. We saw it at its best tonight. I do think there was like a lack of explosive playability there. And I think that is the one concern with them, because Jared Goff's obviously not going to create. He can hit those deep in breakers, which lead to explosive gains, but he's not going to create them on his own. Like, every time like a play goes wrong, like if the first read's not open and there's a little bit of pressure, he almost like gives up on the play. And I don't hate him for doing that, because the margin for error is so strong. Like, he knows, well, we're just going to run for 8 yards on the next play anyway and get right back on track. So he's got a tremendous margin for error. You saw it today. Like, he was playing on easy mode, and that's not taking anything away from him, because he did take advantage of it. I think he had 13 straight completions at one point. You have to hit the throws, and he hit them tonight.
He did hit a big throw on that. They get the holding penalty there on the last drive. It goes to 1st and 20, and then goes to 2nd and 17. He's got pressure in his face from McDuffie. Gets that ball out to Amon-Ra St. Brown on the dig for 16 yards to set up the 3rd and inches, which led to the 4th and inches. I thought that, and that combined with the handoff was like that was in 2 of the last 3 plays. He made big plays there at the end. But yeah, this is a beautifully schemed offense by Ben Johnson. It just is the running game, the offensive line, the play, the screens, like that, like you mentioned, the in-breakers, the throws that he is so good at. So they are fun to watch. And, they have a bad interception in this game from Jared Goff. They have a turnover on downs in their own territory, and they still come out and they still win the game here. So big time win from the Lions. They are now 12-1 and in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed in the NFC, which we've discussed before. Big deal, whether they would potentially be going to Philadelphia or whether the Eagles would potentially be going to Detroit. That is a different Lions offense, I think, in those 2 spots. And so we'll see. There's still, they still have 4 games left here, but I think most likely they are in a great spot to be that number 1 seed.
Yeah, before we wrap up, just gut feeling. Who's winning the NFC today? Make your pick today.
Who's going to the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Lions. I'm not going to be the homer. I'm basically prepared to whichever. Now, you could say Packers and surprise me, but in my head going in, it was like whichever team has home field advantage, that's probably the one I'm going to pick. I think they're playing at a very similar level right now, and certainly the Eagles defense is playing better than the Lions offense. But man, Eagles defense versus that Lions offense would be a very, very fun playoff matchup. Who do you got?
I'm sticking with Green Bay, man.
You still got
like
Green
what
Bay?
I saw
Okay.
today. I like what I saw out of Jordan Love. I thought that the opening game script was a little bad, and I thought Matt LaFleur figured it out at halftime. A little too much passing early on. I felt like they kind of like played into Detroit's hands, and it allowed Jordan Love to get pressured a lot. But once they figured it out and started running the football to set up the passes, we saw this offense at its best. So I mean, we're splitting hairs here, even with Philadelphia. But I'm going to take the Packers just because I like the quarterback the most out of the 3.
That was one of the most surprising things of the first half was how often the Lions were pressuring Jordan Love. I was like, how are they doing this with these guys against that offensive line? So that'll be fun to kind of revisit here in the days ahead. I don't know if they were blitzing more, if they were scheming stuff up front, or if they were just winning their one-on-ones. But he was under more pressure than you're used to him being under. And he gets sacked the one time, and like his superpower is the guy does not take sacks. He was under pressure after that, and he's like, I'm not taking a sack. He got sacked once the whole game, even though he was under pressure there. So fun one to watch, lived up to the hype. Glad we waited to do our beginning of this podcast. So we will take a break now. We'll come back. We'll talk about Chargers Chiefs. We'll talk about the NFC West race, and we will get to our picks for week 14. All right, we are back on the Ringer NFL show. Before we get to some of these games and matchups in week 14, we got to get to this little piece of news, Ruiz, which is that Bill Belichick the Bill Belichick, not another guy who goes by the name of Bill Belichick, has interviewed with North Carolina officials about the Tar Heels head coach opening. This has been reported, it looks like, by a lot of people have it confirmed now. The ESPN story says Inside Carolina first reported that Belichick had interviewed for the job. I think Diana Rossini said it is known that Belichick's kind of just exploring all his options, but he does want to get back into coaching. I got to know what text you were firing off in the group chats or what your reaction was when you first heard this news.
At first, I was like, hey, save him for the NFL. We need Bill Belichick back in the NFL. But the more I thought about it, the less I do want to see him back in the NFL. Don't take your legacy more than you have in the last couple of years of the Patriots era. But I really want to see like the recruiting videos. Like, you know, like you see like Brian Kelly, like in a photo booth doing some awkward dance with like a 17-year-old. Can you imagine Bill Belichick doing that? Like, I would pay $100 to see it. So please, for the love of God, someone give him a job in college.
That's the thing I can't like get to. You know, if you told me, hey, he just loves coaching and he wants to coach football and like college, like that part, I could be like, all right, I don't think he's going to do it. But the recruiting, the NIL, the transfer portal, he is 72 years old, you know, and he has had full authority over his entire, I guess that would be similar. He had full authority over his entire organization in the NFL. So that's the same thing here. If that's something he's coveting, like you get to shape every aspect of the entire program, then maybe. But
are you talking yourself into this? It sounds like you just talked yourself into it mid-sentence.
I don't think it wouldn't be unfun to me.
No, yeah.
If you did that.
And like with NIL and the transfer portal, it's kind of like professional roster building now. We know like he's been a GM. He obviously, like you said, he would want that power. I don't know what that offense would look like. Like, who would he bring in to run it?
Josh McDaniels. What do you mean?
Oh that's
the easiest question you've ever asked me. Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia. You know what? Maybe he would just be like, Patricia, you're in charge of recruiting. He could just hand that off to somebody, I suppose.
Yeah. No, but you have to make an appearance. Like even like Nick Saban was in prospects' living rooms. I just like, what would the pitch be? Like Bill Belichick talking to a 17-year-old, like, in his monotone voice. You want to come play for the best? Like, well, I don't understand.
Maybe, yeah. Flash the rings on their thing. I mean, some players, I'm sure, would be like, yeah, I would like to go play for Bill Belichick there. But what do you think? Just real quick, and this is going to be a topic we're, of course, going to have to revisit probably 100 times between now.
I do, because I think there are enough,
whenever he chooses what his next job is.
I do think he ends up back in the NFL because I think there are enough owners out there who are in a desperate spot. Like Jerry Jones is one of them, but they might end up signing Mike McCarthy to an extension. Shad Khan in Jacksonville, I think, has had some interest in Belichick, although I think they might go for like a younger offensive mind in the end. But yeah, I think there's going to be enough job openings where someone will fall for it. Someone will be like, yes, we'll give you the keys to our organization and you can run it for the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, I'm kind of 50-50. I really don't know. Nora has brought up the point over and over again, like what's changed since last offseason. And I think it's a valid point. You know, you look at the class of coaches that might be hired this offseason, like Mike Vrabel's one. And then it's kind of like, I have no idea. It's not a class where you look at 5 coordinators and are like, these guys are definitely going to get jobs. Ben Johnson obviously will interview for jobs. What we just saw last year, he might be a little bit picky. So that could obviously work for somebody like Bill Belichick. But this is interesting. He obviously wants to get back in at 72 years old after 1 year off. And we will see where Bill Belichick ends up. Will it be at the University of North Carolina, him rocking the Jordan gear? Who knows? Maybe, probably not. All right.
By the way, Nora, what's changed? His electric media career. That's what's changed things. It's changed the perception of him, obviously.
Maybe it's all you have to do is convince one owner, like you said. That's it. All right, let's get to some of these games this weekend that we wanted to talk about. So we're going to do it a little bit differently this week. We're going to talk about Chargers Chiefs because that is a high-level game, obviously, there on Sunday night. But after that, we're going to do an NFC West check-in. Because we thought, you know what, we could do Seahawks Cardinals, but rather than that, let's take a look at the wildest division in football and just look at all of these teams going into week 14 and try to figure out what the heck is going to happen here in the next 4 or 5 weeks. But we start with Chargers Chiefs, Ruiz. And we were discussing, we're like, how do we discuss this that we haven't already discussed previously? Because we've spent a lot of energy, words, minutes on this podcast talking about the Chiefs and how, look at any of the metrics. This is not the Chiefs team of the past, that luck is in their favor. Yet, here they are, and they've got the best record in the AFC, and they're in line to get the 1 seed going into the final 5 weeks. So I guess the question I have for you is, like, knowing what we know and how we feel about this team, how does this end, not in the playoffs, but between now and the playoffs? Like, do you see this as a team that might have a couple more losses between now and then? Do you think they hang on and they're the 1 seed, but we still don't believe in them? Are there things you could see from this team between now and the first round of the playoffs that would make you change your mind one way or the other, whether you're saying, I don't believe in them at all, or it's, hey, I know we were harsh on them earlier in the season, but they did X, Y, and Z the final 5 weeks. So that's like 400 questions. Take it in whatever direction you want.
I'm actually more optimistic now than I was when we discussed this yesterday. So like in the last 24 hours, I've kind of, I don't know, had a come to Jesus moment with the Chiefs. And it's because when you look at their offense, like it feels like the offense, we've been talking about it all year. We've been talking about them working through their pass game struggles, and Mahomes, his ADOT's all the way down to like the worst in the league, or the lowest in the league, I guess is how you would say it. But when you compare where they're at offensively to where they were at the same point last year, it's like night and day. They're such a better offense than they were. It's like you almost forget how bad
I did the same exercise earlier today.
Yeah, and they were 8-4 at the same time. Right now, they obviously have a better record than that. They had a worse offense by EPA, by success rate. The run game success rate was way down. The run game EPA was way down. I think their offense, they have a few more buttons they can push. They're going under center a lot more than they did last year. And then I think the other thing that makes me optimistic about this is that we've got a couple of cryptic tweets from some injured Chiefs this week. We got one from Hollywood Brown, who I think we knew that he was going to be on the mend and come back. But Jalen Watson, the cornerback, who he tweeted out, I don't know how to interpret this, but he was like, this work's going to pay off. And I think there was like a roller coaster emoji that was going up. So I assume that's like a
See, Belichick, this is what you're going to be dealing with. If you're going to go to college, you're going to be having to try to interpret these cryptic tweets.
For all I know, he's like at like an amusement park right now. He's just like enjoying his life. But no, he could come back. And it was assumed that he would be out for the season after his early season injury. And if he does come back, I think that helps their main problem. And it's kind of the main problem that we've overlooked because we've been talking about the offense, and that's the pass defense. Pass defense stinks, and it stunk for a couple of weeks now, maybe a couple months now, and it coincided with that injury to Watson. You bring in, it's almost like they're replacing two outside corners because obviously they lose L'Jarius Sneed in the offseason to Tennessee, and then McDuffie moves outside. He's a capable replacement, but now you got to replace what he was doing in the slot last year. And Shamari Connor's been fine, but he hasn't been good, like as good as Trent McDuffie. Those are very large shoes to fill. And then their replacement options for Watson just haven't been good, and they've been picked on by opposing defenses, and that's why the pass defense has been so bad. So if they get Watson back and the defense gets back to where it was over like the first month of the season when it was really carrying this team, I mean, I could see me going into the playoffs being like, yep, it's the Chiefs. It was always the Chiefs. I'm an idiot forever douding them. Just one more point. Since week 8, Patrick Mahomes is top 5 in EPA per dropback, by the way. And he's coming off his biggest ADOT of the season against Las Vegas. I know the results weren't so great, but 8.4 yards per attempt, air yards per attempt. That's healthier than what we've seen earlier in the year.
Yeah. So like I said, I did the same exercise you did. I was like, let's just look at this offense compared to last year. And, you looked at it at this point in the season. I actually looked at it overall. Just, all right, this was a team that won the Super Bowl last year. What did their offense look like compared to what we're seeing right now? They were 9th in offensive DVOA at the end of the regular, or they're 9th in offensive DVOA right now. They were 8th last season. Explosive pass rate is almost exactly the same. And the point you just made, their success rate this year is way higher than it was last season. They're averaging more points this season per game than they did last season, points per game. So by pretty much any metric you look at, it's either almost exactly the same or better, like you said, better in some of them, the efficiency ones this year than it was last year. So that's number one. I was like, all right, maybe we're overreacting a little bit. Although, to be fair, like there were some coin flip games in there for the Chiefs in the playoffs. You were on this, though, a couple weeks ago. I remember you brought it up saying the defense had you concerned. And that statistically right now is easily the way bigger difference than the offense. They're 15th in DVOA. But more importantly, they're trending downwards. This is from Aaron Schatz, creator of DVOA. Last 5 weeks, they are 29th in passing defense. DVOA. So to your point, you said, last 2 weeks or last 2 months, whatever, last 5 weeks is one way to look at it. One of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. So your margin for error on offense is more slim because your defense isn't going to be able to play at the level that it did last season, unless, to your point, they get a little bit healthier. So I think I'm probably at the same spot you are. There's a chance they hold off the Bills for the 1 seed. And if they get the bye and they get home field advantage, and Patrick Mahomes is healthy, it's just, of course they're going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I mean, you would have to be a moron to think they've got no chance there. At the same time, I don't think that means what we've seen so far, we've been out of line in the way we've discussed them, because you look at it, overall, their team is 12th in total DVOA. They've never been lower than 6th. This is the worst team Patrick Mahomes has ever been on with the Chiefs here. The Chargers, the team they're playing this weekend, has a higher point differential than them. And this surprised me. The Broncos have a better point differential than them. They are 3rd in their own division in point differential. They're 9-0 in one-score games. That's never happened with the team in the last 25 years, since 2000. No team at this point in the season was 9-0 in one-score games. And then the other one I've mentioned before, they're plus 54 on the season. If you look at every team that had 11 wins at this point in the season, none of them were worse than plus 88. It's by far the worst team among the teams that are good enough to have 11 wins at this point in the season. So they're interesting. I mean, they're very interesting because it's a flawed team. They've got issues at tackle, at wide receiver, at cornerback, and we don't know what it's going to look like, whether they're going to be able to fix it going into the playoffs. There's a chance they do. And they three-peat here. There's also a chance that we're talking in the divisional round or certainly the AFC Championship, and they lose, and we say, hey, those flaws we were talking about all season, those were finally exposed.
Yeah, and there's a chance that they figure out those flaws, and that doesn't equal a championship anyway, because the margin for error for them are the margins between them and the Bills and the Ravens this year, I think, are thinner. I think the reason why we feel a little bit worse about them, and we said this before, is that the teams around them are doing better. At this time last year, the Bills were 6-6. You remember, I remember potting with you about the Bills last year. It's just it's over, doom and gloom. They obviously turned it around, but they were never quite that Super Bowl threat, that legit Super Bowl threat, until they pushed the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Ravens were 9-3. Obviously, they ended up getting the 1 seed, but they were 9-3 with losses to Gardner Minshew, Kenny Pickett, and Deshaun Watson. They were kind of in the same spot as this year, where it's they're winning and we've seen them play well against good teams, but we also seen them shit the bed against bad quarterbacks. And how is that going to look in the playoffs? The other contenders in the AFC at this time last year was Miami at 9-3. The Chiefs had already beaten, I think, in Germany, and then the Jaguars at 8-4.
Oh my gosh!
So it wasn't there was no one really threatening them. No one believed in the Dolphins at this time last year, and we certainly didn't believe in the Jaguars. We were smart for not believing in them, it turns out. So it's kind of relative to the rest of the league. That's why you feel a little bit worse about them at this point in the year, but they do have guys potentially coming back who could fill those voids. In Hollywood Brown, he could fill that void, add an explosive layer to that offense. I'm assuming he's going to be able to know where the sideline is and make catches, unlike Xavier Worthy. And hopefully we can stop relying on Justin Watson as the deep threat here. The one concern, though, is the Kelsey thing. I called it the Kelsey index a couple of weeks ago. I mean, the numbers are just getting more and more brutal. He's obviously still that security blanket for Mahomes, but he's not the chain mover he used to be. His first down / TD rate on receptions, it was 75% 2 years ago. It's down to 48%. It was 58% last year. It's 48%. So under half of his receptions are going for a first down or a touchdown. And that's very concerning. But guys like DeAndre Hopkins has improved. He's been very efficient with his targets. Noah Gray has obviously had breakout games over the last couple of weeks, and he's almost become a replacement for Kelsey. He's catching those explosive gains. He's averaging more yards after the catch than Kelsey is, which is very surprising. It's 5.5 to 3.8. So maybe he can fill in those gaps there, and then you get Hollywood Brown back, and he adds the deep threat. And you could totally see this being a passing game that's in the aggregate just as good as the passing game we saw in last year's playoff.
Yeah, maybe DJ Humphries is, at left tackle, and Pacheco's back. It's kind of there are a bunch of moving pieces that you look at it and say, all right, it could look different in the playoffs. So we'll see what it looks like there. By the way, that was a great reminder, bringing up the Dolphins and Jaguars, of we feel like the season's almost over. Stuff's going to change. There's going to be a lot of change about how we look at some of these teams now and how we look at them before wild card weekend. Like, I hadn't even remembered that. Like, that's crazy. 8-4 for the Jaguars. And look how that season ended. There could be a team like that this year.
So what's your feel for this game? Because like, even with all this doom and gloom that we've kind of talked, I guess we've been kind of optimistic about the Chiefs, but I think this is a bad matchup for the Chargers because like when you look at the Chiefs' pass game struggles, like on the defensive side, they're not giving up explosive plays like more than they did last year. They're giving up like underneath stuff, and teams are able to move the ball more. Like it's a higher success rate for the most part. And I don't know if the Chargers play that style of offense. Like they're gonna play into the strengths of the Chiefs defense. They're going to run into that run defense, which is still very good. And then they're going to try to take shots downfield. And like I said, they've taken away explosives. So I could see this being a Greg Roman kind of game where he kind of holds the offense back a little bit.
I see it similarly, although I'll admit I change my mind on the Chargers pretty much every week. Some weeks I'm like, Herbert and Harbaugh and this defense, they got a chance. And then you watch a game like last week and you're just like, how do you have 10 first downs and take 5 sacks against the Atlanta Falcons? And I think your point was a good one. They have one way to play offensively when they're successful, and that's like if they hit on explosive plays. They are not a station to station, pick up first downs, methodical drives. They're 27th in success rate. You look at the teams around them, it's like some of the worst teams in the NFL, but we've seen it this year. We've talked about it. Justin Herbert's able to show off that arm and take those shots downfield, maybe more so than he has in previous seasons. But the first time, and I know it was week 4, these teams faced each other, and it's different now, but that was the Chargers' worst offensive performance of this season. That was the 3rd worst game by any team this season in offensive success rate. What you just described is what they tried to do. 24 carries for 55 yards in that game. And they had 12 total first downs. So what I would like to see is kind of how they had been trending, maybe not last year, but had been trending to, hey, let's put the ball in the quarterback's hands, early downs, play action, throw the ball. And like, I want to see what it looks like. Like that's easily their best chance to win this game. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. That first game, they were just so conservative.
And Ladd McConkey has been like in and out of practice. I don't think he practiced on Wednesday. So like, that's a big concern. He's been like Justin Herbert's third down target, his only reliable third down target. And really, he's been on the receiving end of a lot of those explosive plays, especially the ones that weren't like schemed up, like play action. We're going to set up this guy so he's wide open running down the field. And it's like Will Dissly. Like McConkey has been like actually getting his receptions within the structure of the offense, even if it's just a drop back pass.
Yeah. Would your opinion of the Chargers change if they came out and played well and beat the Chiefs in this game? Or do you feel like you know who they are and what they are?
I think I would be more optimistic about them because that means, one, they either repeated their defensive performance from earlier in the year against a Chiefs offense that's performing better right now, at least a passing game, especially with Hopkins out there. And if they win a high-scoring game, that means Greg Roman made us look like idiots, and he defied us and had a great game plan and beat Spagnuolo's defense. So, yeah, I think either way, I'm feeling good about this Chargers team if they win. I just don't expect them to win.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I like the Chiefs in this game, but if the Chargers come out and play a different style, because, again, the teams you're going to have to beat in the AFC are most likely the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens, I think, are the 3 favorites. So if you can come out, they played that Ravens game a couple of weeks ago. They were competitive in that game. It kind of got away from them late. But if they can come back and beat this Chiefs team, I think that would make me look at them a little bit differently for sure. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in this game in Kansas City Sunday night. All right, let's talk a little NFC West, state of the NFC West. So again, this is rather than picking one game, let's hit on all 4 teams and see where we're at with them. The Seahawks-Cardinals game is obviously the biggest one here. Seahawks are 7-5 leading the division. Cardinals and Rams are both 6-6. 49ers are 5-7. If you look at the FanDuel odds, Seahawks are the favorites at plus 145. Cardinals are second at plus 180, so right behind them. Rams are right behind the Cardinals at plus 290. And then way back, who would have thought? 4th are the 49ers at plus 1,400. So let's start with the Seahawks-Cardinals game, Ruiz, and let's start with the Seahawks here, what you've seen from them in recent weeks. Is it sustainable? Are they rightfully the favorites in the division? Or is that just because they have one more win and that you don't have faith in them holding on to that spot?
I mean, I do kind of have faith in them. Like when you look at the individual units for all these teams, like the Rams offense, the Rams defense, Cardinals offense, and so on and so forth, I think the Seahawks defense is the one that I trust the most down the stretch. By the numbers, the Cardinals offense is probably the best unit out of anyone in the division. It's like the most explosive offense, it has the highest success rate, or it has the second highest success rate behind the Rams, but they're top 5 in success rate and explosive play rate, top 10 in EPA per play. They have a good run game that's kind of tough to defend because they have Kyler Murray out there as an option threat. They have the tight ends that they can put out on the field and kind of play games personnel-wise. But when you watch them go up against Seattle 2 weeks ago, I thought Mike Macdonald just called a hell of a game. I went back and watched that game again today. And obviously Leonard Williams had a huge game. He had 9 pressures. He had 2.5 sacks. The Cardinals, or Kyler Murray was sacked 5 times in this game. I think Kyler Murray was pressured on almost half of his dropbacks. But when you watch it, it was kind of like Mike Macdonald deserves some of the credit for those pressures because of the things they did with their disguises. Like they would line up in a man look where like the corner's pressed up and his butt's to like the end zone and not the sideline, which you would expect in like a zone coverage. And they would like really hold that disguise like a beat or two after the snap. Like usually you see it before the snap, but they were doing it after the snap. And I thought it was really messing with Kyler Murray, and it made him hold on to the ball and like create that pressure. With his average time to throw was over 4 seconds in that game. And if you watch it, it wasn't like he was like kind of like, running around. He didn't really scramble a whole lot. But I think he was kind of uncomfortable with what he was seeing. And Kyler Murray has said this before. I think he had the quote where he's like, I don't really watch too much film. I'm more like a feel guy out there. And people kind of shitted on him for that. But like when you see him play, it is true. Like you see him, he's like intuitive. He's like a playmaker who feels gaps in the defense, and he's very good at it. But I think Mike Macdonald, I don't know if it was intentional, but I think he really preyed on that in this game. And that was a big reason why the Cardinals had a hard time moving the ball. And then Seattle just totally decimated their run game. Thought Mike Macdonald was good there too. It wasn't like he did it with overwhelming numbers. It was just like, I have a good beat on where you want to do in the run game, and I'm going to send my extra numbers there, and I'm going to take away like the inside run game is something that they really did well. You saw the Cardinals try to do like some outside runs later in the game, but the game script was behind them and it didn't really work out. So I'm interested to see how this works out. It's the first time I believe that we've seen the Cardinals have a rematch against a team. And I think this is a good test for if they make the playoffs, because teams are going to know what you're doing by the time you make the playoffs. The scouting report is out there. Are you going to have a plan B and a plan C? We've seen this offense play well so far through, what has it been, 12, 13 weeks? I want to see how it goes down the stretch, because we've seen some cracks in that passing game, especially when Kyler Murray's under pressure.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Drew Petzing, I think, has done a good job this season. Obviously, you gave all the numbers. They're 7th in offensive DVOA. That by, any measure, if you're looking at that before the season, you would have said, hey, their offense, that's a great outcome for that Cardinals offense. But Macdonald pantsed them, a couple of weeks ago. To your point, that was a 16-6 game. That was one of Arizona's worst games of the season by any other metric you want to look at. Like you mentioned, Leonard Williams was awesome in that game. They pressured and sacked Kyler Murray. They had 49 rushing yards in that game. The Seahawks had the big pick 6, which Devon Witherspoon made that terrific play, and that kind of flipped the game there. So now it's like, after this game, we'll either be like, Macdonald, man, he's got his fastball, because it wasn't just a one-game thing. They've been playing really well now for 3-4 weeks here. They made the changes at linebacker. They got healthy up front, and it's really showing. I think their defense is playing at a high level right now. So it could go in that direction where it's a repeat, or like you said, show us something, Cardinals. You saw what they did to you a couple weeks ago. Now, what is your counter to what they did there? So Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites in this game. It's funny, you look at it overall, and you mentioned it with the, Cardinals offense would be the best unit in the NFC West. Overall, they're 7th in DVOA. That's the highest of any team in this division. And maybe more importantly, they have the 5th easiest remaining schedule. So things are set up for the Cardinals here, even despite them letting that one slip away last week against the Vikings, which we could be looking at that going, man, Johnny Gans making those conservative in-game decisions really cost them maybe a playoff spot, maybe a division title. But if you zoom out, they've done a lot of good things. The defense has overachieved, and it actually has been coming on strong. I was making fun of that unit a lot the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. They've been better, and then they've got the pieces offensively. So very, very intriguing game in Arizona.
Yeah, and I think this is a big game for Ryan Grubb too, because when you go back and watch the game, the Seahawks won the game, but their offense stunk. And I thought the Cardinals did a good job of getting guys from the second level to really attack the pocket, whether it was the run game even. They had free run-throughs in the run game and got some tackle for losses. They got some free pressures on Geno Smith. So I'm looking for Grubb to have a counter for that. I think it's something you can counter. You can kind of use that aggressiveness against them, maybe with some trap plays, some play action plays to take advantage of it. If he's not able to do that, I know we've both had question marks about him all season long. I think those questions are just going to get bigger for me.
Yeah, their offense is worse this year than it was last year. And like
Shane Waldron, who hasn't,
it was Shane Waldron, right? And the pieces are very similar. Like their offensive line wasn't good last year. It's not good this year. They still had Geno. They had the same backs. They had the same wide receivers. If anything, Smith and Jigba's now has another year under his belt, and the offense is worse this year than it was last year. So much on the line here per FTN. The Seahawks, if they win, 62% chance at the playoffs, loss 11%. And the Cardinals, a win puts them at 71%. Loss puts them at 17%. So not quite a play-in game, but pretty much as high stakes as you can get in a game in Week 14. One thing to keep an eye on, that Seahawks punter, Michael Dixon. If you watched last week's game, he's got the back injury. Sounds like he's still dealing with that here, but it's going to play. But obviously, special teams was a mess for the Seahawks last year, and sometimes that's what makes the difference in some of these games. All right. Rams. Tough team. Another team I change my mind about every week. Rams host the Buffalo Bills. Rams are 3.5-point home underdogs here. They get the win at New Orleans last week. Maybe not the most impressive win of the season. It was very dicey in the first half there before they built a little bit of a lead and I think won 21-7. Where are you, Ruiz, Matthew Stafford lover at this point in the Rams season? What is your belief level?
It's wavering. I have to admit it. Like, I want this team to be good. I want them to hit their stride before the playoffs. I want them to make the playoffs. I want to see Matthew Stafford like at the top of his game, throwing in breakers to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua over the middle. I want to see, Jared Verse having a big impact as a rookie. But it just seems like everything is so hard and labored for them. Even on offense, like Matthew Stafford is like spinning plates on sticks. I don't even know what you call that. He's like doing that and trying to keep everything.
Like the halftime show thing.
Yeah, he's like juggling and trying to keep all these balls in the air. And you could see it even in their wins. Like they beat the Saints, but it was a tough win over the Saints, 21-14. They beat the Patriots, but even that was a tough win. Like they couldn't really stop Drake May. And then they get kind of manhandled in the second half against Philadelphia. They really ran away with that game. And it was sort of the same case against Miami in that Monday night game where they really had struggles on defense. So I don't know. There's just something missing about this team. Maybe it's just luck in terms of injury. Obviously, they haven't really recovered from that offensive line or from their offensive line problems. I still have faith in Sean McVay. I don't have faith in that defense. Even like I'm impressed by the young defensive linemen, but there's still like a lot of error in the coverage. And you could see the good offenses find like a thing to attack, and they just keep on attacking it until they fall apart. And they usually do because they just don't have the talent they used to have a couple years ago when they had Aaron Donald, they had Jalen Ramsey, they had problem solvers, they had one-man problem solvers. Yeah. They don't have that anymore. It's a defense that gets it done by unit, and they're just not that strong of a unit overall. So I don't know. I still like them. They're enjoyable. They're a watchable team. I'm not going to like give up on them. I'm going to watch all their games for the rest of the year, but give me Seattle over them. Like I said, like Seattle's defense, that's enough for me. I'm taking the coaching advantage there. I don't want to say coaching advantage, obviously, because Sean McVay's a great coach, but he doesn't have the pieces he's had in the past.
It feels like, as you were describing that, I was like, what's the right way? It just feels like there are too many things that can go wrong for them throughout the course of a game. And sometimes when those things don't go wrong, it looks beautiful. They're just moving the ball down the field. They're second in offensive success rate behind only the Lions. And they're like mid-tier in terms of explosive plays. But I'm with you. When you watch them, you're kind of like, this doesn't feel like a well-oiled machine most of the time. You look at the nice throws and you're going, oh, that was sweet. And oh my gosh, that Puka Nacua catch, that's incredible. And Kyron Williams. And you have those plays in there. But throughout the course of a game, it just feels like, is it all going to go right for them? And it feels like usually it doesn't.
It's like we're like in season 4 of like a prestige drama. Like season 1 was amazing. Oh my God. Season 1 was so good. Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, they won the Super Bowl. The season finale was amazing. The no-look pass, the twist at the end. But now it's like, you can appreciate it like as a football watcher, like as a film watcher, like, oh, this is like, it's still well directed, it's still well acted, but the show just doesn't have the juice it has. I'm not enjoying myself, but I'm coming back every week and I'm not enjoying myself like I used to. I feel like that's what the Rams feel like right now. And they need like one of those like 2017 Saints draft classes, or like a refreshing moment that Sean McVay got when he got Stafford to really like kick it back into high gear and become a contender again. But I don't think it's going to happen this season.
You're not watching it the night of because, like, I got to watch this. Everyone's going to be talking. It's like Thursday. You're like flipping through the DVR. All right, I guess, yeah. All right, we can get to this now. I think that's a good way to put it. Defensively, it feels like if their pass rush can dominate, which against bad offensive lines, sometimes they can, then they can survive. But if they can't, it's just like, watch out. Mm-hmm. Like they're just going to be plays to be made against this defense. I think that's what we saw in that Eagles game a couple weeks ago. It was just like they couldn't get near Jalen Hurts and they couldn't stop the run, and they're getting pushed around. And when that happens, they look like one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Now, the defensive line has overachieved, fun young pieces. So it hasn't looked like that every week. It feels like they've actually overachieved, I would say, if you look at it overall in the season, because I thought they were going to be one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. But I just don't know against a Bills team like this with a very good offensive line, with a very good offense, with Josh Allen, are they going to be able to survive or not? So a lot riding on this for the Rams. I mean, the McVay-Stafford partnership, does it last beyond this season? Is Stafford there beyond this season? So a lot riding on the final 5 weeks here. We see if the Rams are able to get into the playoffs or whether their season kind of ends in a whimper. All right, last team in the division. We've talked about them a bunch. I don't know how much time we need to spend on them. The Niners, 3.5-point favorites at home against the Chicago Bears. Any hopes for a last surge here, Ruiz? What would it look like? What would have to happen? No Christian McCaffrey, no Jordan Mason. Isaac Guerrero is going to probably decide a bunch of fantasy leagues here in the next few weeks. Maybe no Nick Bosa or Trent Williams for this game. We will see. What do you think? Any chance for Niners fans?
I mean, maybe. I don't think we're going to see it over the next 2 weeks, though. Like, they really just got to stall out. They got to win these 2 games and hope they could, still be alive for that stretch run against the Dolphins, the Lions, and then at Arizona. Like, that's the stretch that's going to decide their season. I think they should win these next 2 games. Like, even if they are banged up, they should be able to beat a Bears team. I think, they just lost their coach. They just lost the mastermind behind their defense. I don't know if that's the word I should use for that.
I don't think so.
Eberflus, but Kyle Shanahan should win that matchup against an interim DC or interim defensive play caller. And then we've talked about how hard it is for the Rams. Like, Kyle Shanahan should be able to win this. He's had success against Sean McVay in the regular season. That's another game. They're at home. They should be able to win. They'll be a week healthier. Maybe they'll have a few more pieces back. So, maybe there is a chance. Get back to me in 2 weeks. We've written this team off. We've written them back on. Yeah. I don't know what to say. It's hard to analyze this team because you just don't know what it's going to look like in 3 weeks. Yeah.
Remaining schedule is 10th hardest in the NFL. What you described, I think, is what's going to happen. I think they're going to win the next 2 games, be 7-7, get the hopes up a little bit. But I think ultimately probably just come up short because they've dug themselves a little bit of a hole, and not a little bit of a hole, a big hole, and have all these injuries. So we will see what that. The last 2 games they've gotten crushed by the Packers and the Bills, but those are 2 of 5 or 6 teams that can win the Super Bowl, So and one of them was in the snow and the other one was with Brandon Allen. So I'm still looking at it going, I'm with you. They should, I feel like they should win this game against the Chicago Bears. They still should be able to do stuff offensively in this game. And, you go against the Rams and Shanahan McVay. Let's see if that game can have some juice in week 15. All right. So those are all the NFC West teams. Where are you? Yeah. And we're going to change our minds every week. You have to pick right now who's winning the NFC West.
I'm going Seattle. And it's because
I hate
of the
that
defense.
We have the same team. We're so boring.
No, it's an exciting pick. Let the hipsters pick the Cardinals. Let the other people try to talk themselves into the 49ers or the Rams because they have the coach we know about. No, I think I think their defense is just getting better. I think Mike McDonald's a tremendous coach, and he reminded us of that over the past couple of games. And this is what it looked like in Baltimore with that defense. It struggled initially. It had some problems with explosive plays, but once it figured that out, you could really tell in that first season in December that Mike McDonald was going to be somebody as defensive coordinator. And I expect to see a similar evolution for Seattle. And I think that will be enough. Because I still, as much as I like the Cardinals offense and as much as I like Kyler Murray, and I think he's played well this year, I don't trust him. I don't trust him against a good team and against good defense.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same spot. I just feel like the Seahawks defense, if what we've seen in recent weeks is real, should be able to keep them in every game. Obviously have concerns about the offensive line still, but if, they've had some moving pieces there, they've been a little bit better, not great, but a little bit better. Maybe there's enough there. And they've obviously got the 1-game lead here in the NFC West. So big one in Arizona, Seahawks at Cardinals. All right, take a break. We come back. We go over our picks for week 14. All right, we are back on the Ringer NFL show. A reminder, we are making 3 picks every week. Can be anything that is minus 120 or better odds. Whoever is in last place gets assigned the slop game of the week. That person has to watch the worst game of the week and lead the recap of it on Sunday night. Now, you might have heard, I sometimes or often mention our friend Dan Comer, who's our helper, our assistant here on this podcast, gives us a lot of assistance behind the scenes. He brought to our attention a little controversy, Ruiz, that we need to get the details on.
No controversy here. No controversy.
Listen, we need because Comer keeps track of the records, and he had you down for 1-2 last week, and he had me in at 2-1 and Deontay in at 2-1. But we need to find out from Comer what about the controversy and what that one win was. Is that under protest? Or is that a legit win? So bringing in for the first time on the Ringer NFL show. Welcome in, Dan Comer.
Thank you. This is a jump scare. When Sheil brought this to my attention, I thought, this is a fun idea. This is great. I'm going to get on the mic, hopefully not burn the place down. That's always been the fear. That's why I live in the background. But no, there really isn't a controversy here. Steven last week picked something. He had Keenan Allen over 4.5 receptions, which was minus 168. That's what he said on the pod. So if you heard that, you thought Steven's a cheater. Maybe his record this year is suspect. Fair.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
That's where we were. But after the pod, he made a point to be honorable and say, look, I'm going to take plus odds just because I misled the public. And I just want to be clear. Steven was honorable and he actually took an L because he did this. So I want to clear the record for anyone out there that's been questioning this guy. He's clear. He's way ahead of you in Deontay at this point. I just want to clear the record for my guy Ruiz. He's been honorable.
I appreciate it.
He's been honorable. He's been by far the best picker this year, and it was legit. I mean, Keenan Allen ended up with 5 receptions, and we changed it to 6+.
I could have taken it 5+, and I could have hit the bet, but I took plus odds because I'm an honorable player. And Comer knows I'm honorable. We're in a NCAA 25 online dynasty together. I'm nothing if not honorable. I'm definitely not a winner. But I'm honorable player.
He's a little too honorable. He plays offense like it's like the 1980s, and his defense. He prides himself on his defense, but we'll see. Couple weeks. Weeks. We're gonna show down pretty soon.
So disappointing for me right here. I mean, my plan backfired. You're supposed to come on. You're supposed to rip him. Supposed to say the guy's been cheated. He just cheated. He cheated all season. We don't know if we can take this record for what it's worth. See, I didn't know the backstory because when at the end of the show, you brought to our attention last week that no, it's minus 160. And at that point, Ruiz was a little quiet. So I thought, is he just going to take the minus 160? Because then I'm ripping him for this next week. But there was more that happened behind the scenes. Ruiz, I'm sorry. I questioned your character.
It was done in the Google Doc comments. That's why you didn't see it. Comer, he operates in silence.
Well, and also you guys don't look at my Google Docs. I get you all this stuff. And I do all this research for you. I'm like, here, check this out. Here's some injuries. Here's some great data. And you're like, no, I'm just going to do the data I want to do. It's like, all right, cool. Fact checked your data. Whatever. I'm out of here. Y'all be well.
All right. Thank you to Dan Comer for setting the record straight. That was his first time on the pod, Ruiz. Next time on the pod, I think we do a little a dating recap from Dan Comer.
No, I'd love to hear it. Related. The people don't realize it, but they need to hear it too.
They need to hear it. Yeah.
Man of interest.
Walking around the streets of Los Angeles looking for love. Who knows? Maybe we find a match with the Ringer NFL listener. All right. Someone's probably going to cut that out from the episode. All right. Let's get to the picks here. So Ruiz gets the slop game of the week. He is still, as Comer mentioned, the leader at 25-14 on the season. Deontay and I are both 19-20. Listen, it's not over. 6 games behind him. We're closing just one by one, week by week. Slop games of the week. I feel like we had 2 options here, Ruiz. Jags at Titans or Saints at Giants. I think you made the point that we picked the Saints like every week for the slop game of the week. So we thought, let's do a little Jags at Titans. So there you go. You got to keep your eye on Will Levis, Mac Jones, and whatever else happens there.
Will Levis, I'm excited to watch Will Levis, but I think Mac Jones
Will Levis.
Totally negates any enjoyment I'll get from Will Levis. Mac Jones might be my least favorite quarterback to watch of all time.
There you go. So you can just watch when the Titans have the ball, or, just give us some update on how Will Levis looks there. All right. As you know, Deontay is not with us for this segment, but he did send along some picks. So we'll get to those here at the end. All right. I'm going to start us off since I'm trailing. I don't want you to be able to, steal one of my picks here. So I'm going to Miami, and I'm just going straight pick against the spread here. Miami Dolphins -5.5 over the New York Jets. I like the Dolphins in this game. I think the Jets are cooked. They are also injured. And the Dolphins, it's very simple this time of year. Good weather, home, take them. Bad weather, outside, they go up north, you fade them. That's all. And so this game is in Miami. The offense looked really good before they had to go play at Lambeau last week in the cold weather. They're on extra rest here. They have a very outside shot at making the playoffs. I don't want to make it sound like they're going to get in, but I think they're still going to play and have their guys and be able to put up a lot of points on this Jets defense. And that Jets offense was terrible last week against the Seahawks we mentioned earlier. So I like the Dolphins -5.5 over the Jets for my first pick.
When I was doing my initial screening for picks, I usually, when I start out, I just look at the big picture and then I kind of delve into the picks and really research them. But I would almost talk myself into taking the points with the Jets. Because I was the Dolphins, they've been throwing it underneath, they've been getting yacked. The Jets are a run and chase team. They're going to tackle you. They rally to the ball. But that's what the Jets have been on defense. But this year they kind of, they stink at tackling. So maybe I think the Dolphins will have another big game. They're going to be able to dink and dunk all over the place. Wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Waddle has a huge game against them on a dot of 4.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they've been playing. So that would be good for me. I've got in the picks I send out on social, I do have Tua's over in passing yards in this game. So just get the ball out, let those guys get yards after the catch, like Ruiz mentioned. All right, Ruiz, what do you have? What's your first pick?
All right, I'm going to fade the Bryce Young resurgence arc. They're going up against the Eagles, who might be the best defense in the NFL, and his passing total is 192.5 yards. Even during this hot stretch of his, quote unquote, he's been struggling to reach those types of numbers. So I just think the Eagles are going to overwhelm him, especially on the defensive line, the interior. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Carter has a very violent confrontation with him, within the parameters of the game, of course.
Well, that's the thing, because when I was rewatching the Bryce, he takes some hits in there. It is commendable. He will stand in the pocket, deliver, and he doesn't duck. He's taking a hit. It's what you want to see. But also, when you're that small, anytime it happens, I was
flying.
Is he getting up? Yeah, so. Yeah,
he goes flying. And if you watch the end zone angle of that game against the Bucs, you saw some ducks, flopping in the wind. And it's going to be 10-mile-per-hour wind in this game. So I could see him having a little issues there. The Eagles defense is just playing so well. So I think he could still conceivably play well and not hit this number.
Yeah, this is maybe one of the biggest Jimmy's and Joe's versus X's and O's type schemes of the season. It's just hard to find one area where you're the Panthers at least have an edge here. And the way those Eagles defensive backs have been covering on the back end against those Panthers receivers, who also did not, Adam Thielen made the one awesome catch, but overall they were dropping some balls there last week where Young's numbers could have looked even better. Yeah, I think the Panthers could have a tough time in that one, although who knows? That would throw a nice sort of grenade into the season if the Panthers last year, the Cardinals were, I think, 12.5-point favorites around this time last year, went to Philadelphia, and Johnny Gans pulled the upset against the Eagles. So that would be a very, very interesting outcome. I don't think it's going to happen. You don't sound like you think it's going to happen, but that's why they will play the game. All right, my second one. This is a game we kind of considered talking about in the A block. We didn't think it quite reached that level, but there's some intrigue with the Atlanta Falcons going to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. And so mine here is probably going to surprise you. I'm going Falcons over 20.5 points in this game. It's plus 102. It was 19.5. The odds weren't good enough, so I had to go to the plus odds at 20.5 points. So they got to score 21 points for me to win this. Ruiz, this is an interesting game because I think it can go one of two ways, and I'm not totally sure which way it's going to go. One is Kirk Cousins plays like he played last week, and we're on the Sunday night show, and probably in the first 10 minutes of the show, we're saying the Michael Penix era is beginning in Atlanta next week, which would be exciting for someone like me in team content. That's possible too. It's also possible that I think he bounces back a little bit. You know, I was rewatching that game and like they had 350 yards. They had 24 first downs. He had a bunch of bad plays, don't get me wrong, but they were moving the football on that Chargers defense. And while this Vikings defense is still very good, they're first in defensive DVOA. I think if we go by the eye test, the last whatever month of the season, they're not playing quite at the same level they were playing earlier in the season. I think they're more gettable now than they were then. So I'm going to lean a little bit towards the Falcons playing a competitive game here. Cousins giving some type of post-game speech about how much it meant for everyone to stick by him as he faced his former team and that, you know, this is life in the NFL, that you have a bad week, but you got to bounce back. And, you know, so Raheem Morris is giving him the game ball and everyone's going nuts in the locker room. I think the Falcons have a shot here to pull off the upset. I think their offense is going to bounce back a little bit, over 20.5 points for Atlanta. Am I crazy?
Yeah, you're crazy. You got way too much faith in Kirk Cousins. But no, my pick is also from this game, my second pick. And I mean, it could work with your pick. I'm going Kirk Cousins over 34.5 pass attempts for like the opposite reason. I think it's going to be negative game script. And I really think that Brian Flores is going to sell out to stop like the outside zone running game, which is like basically all the Falcons do in the run game. And he was like one of the architects of that defense that really figured out how to shut down the Sean McVay run game in 2018. I think you're going to see like that 6-1 front that teams were throwing at the Rams. And I don't know what to think of first-year offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, another PFF coordinator to go along with Bobby Slowick, former PFF employees. I don't know if he's going to have answers for that. And I think we're going to see Kirk Cousins, like, you know, checking out of a lot of runs because the front doesn't look like the right picture. And we're going to see a lot of play action passes. And then we're going to see a lot of third downs where Kirk Cousins is getting teed off on by Brian Flores. So
could be.
I mean, I could see like Kirk does have it in him to like read out a blitz and get rid of the ball quickly. We know he wants to do that. So like, I'm with you. I could see it going one of two ways, but I'm leaning towards it going the bad way for Atlanta.
It could. Yeah, I was going back and forth on this, but I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm thinking too much about what he did to Todd Bowles earlier this season. Brian Flores is not Todd Bowles. The Vikings defense is way better than that Bucs defense. But yeah, he's, for better or worse, he's seen a lot of this stuff, at least before in his career. Is he able to execute against it? We shall see.
It didn't look good against Vance Joseph. I will say that. Who's like the spiritual play caller to Brian Flores.
I didn't think about that one. Oh, well, too late to change now. All right, last one for me. I'm going to a game we already talked about. I like the Bills, -3.5 against the Rams. I just think their offensive line is too good. I don't think the Rams are going to be able to pressure Josh Allen. I don't think the defense is going to be able to hold up against the Bills offense. And the Bills still have a lot to play for here. I mean, they're aiming for that number 1 seed. They're looking to overtake the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is one where the Bills just have more guys, are just a better team, and maybe it gets a little dicey in the first half, but unless they turn the football over or have errors on special teams, which those things could absolutely happen, I think they can beat the Los Angeles Rams by at least 4 points. So that's my third one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a blowout. I mean, maybe we come back Sunday night and it was an exciting game where Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford were going back and forth. But I think the Bills are going to be able to run the football on first down. And like we said earlier, once you find a crack in that Rams defense, it kind of just falls apart. And I think that's maybe what's going to happen here. And if that Bills pass rush can get home against the Matthew Stafford and that offensive line, I think it's going to be a long day for them, a real pass-heavy day for the Rams.
Yeah, it will be fun if that other outcome you met, if Stafford is dealing and they pull the upset, that also is going to be a fun outcome. I don't think it's the most likely outcome, but you never know. All right, what is your third one?
My third one is coming from the Bengals and Cowboys game on Monday Night Football. At first, I was looking at this line, -5.5, and I was like, that's way too low. Way too low. Like the Bengals are a much better team than the Cowboys. But then I was like, I don't want to trust in this Bengals defense. So I'm just going the Bengals point total over 27.5 points, which I think is still, it's way too low of a number against this Dallas defense, which has gave up 20 points to the Giants, which against Drew Lock, the exchange rate there is like 35 points against Joe Burrow, I would say. It gave up 34 points to that struggling Houston offense a couple of weeks ago, gave up 34 points to the Eagles, gave up 27 points to the Falcons offense, like right before they went downhill, 30 points to the 49ers offense. So the Bengals have just been scoring so many points. So their lowest point total in the last month is 27 points. I think they'll ring up 28 or more against this Cowboys defense. And I think it's a bad matchup, like stylistically. Like you have Zimmer kind of throwing those looks at maybe the sharpest pre-snap quarterback in the NFL right now. I think Burrow's going to have answers. I know there's question marks about Jamar Chase, but I don't know. I think they'll have enough firepower there. I am interested to watch are you going to watch the Simpsons version of the broadcast?
Yeah, we got to watch it for our friend Mina Kimes, right? If nothing else.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it because I don't want to watch this game like properly. I don't want to watch the actual broadcast, but I think this could really backfire for, Jerry and the Cowboys. I think they should have thought about this more because they might look like fools in some way. I don't know. If we get like a Simpsons version of Mike McCarthy, I would pay for that. Actually, I want to see this.
Were you a big Simpsons guy? Are you a big Simpsons guy?
Yeah. Growing up, I'd watch the reruns. Like the syndicated, I haven't watched like the later seasons, but like what were like the prime seasons, like season 4 through 8? Yeah, I'm all in on those.
Yeah, see, I whenever I watched it, I liked it, but I was not a regular viewer. So I actually just convinced my youngest daughter. I'm like, let's start The Simpsons from the beginning and see if we like it and how many we can get through. So we watched like the first 3 episodes so far, and it's a delight. So, I mean, this will probably be like a 10-year undertaking if we try to get through every single episode, but it's nice to have in our back pocket, little father-daughter
bond. The first couple of seasons, if I recall correctly, are like terrible. Like I think the first season is kind of stinks. I find it enjoyable, but I was kind of into the whole exercise of let's watch every episode. But I'm sure once we get to the seasons you mentioned, I'll be like, all right, this is much better than the earlier ones. It's like watching the Rams offense these days,
That's true. Yeah, very similar. There you go. All right. Deontay's picks here, Ruiz. Let's go over them one by one for him. Sam Darnold, he's going in the same game, but taking the other side. Sam Darnold over 249.5 passing yards. He is not buying what he saw from that Falcons defense last week. What do you think?
I think if Sam Darnold has to throw for nearly 300 yards, KOC is going to be very concerned on Sunday. I don't know. I don't think the Vikings are going to have to throw for that many yards. I think if they wanted to, it's very possible against that Falcons defense, but I think game script, I would go against this pick.
When I was fading all the Darnold yardage totals at the beginning of the season and losing on at least half of them, you just realize that Kevin O'Connell's just so good at scheming up explosive plays that it's like, man, even if you feel like the quarterback's not playing great, and hey, he finished that game very strong last week for the victory. There's no doubt about it, but it's like he can just scheme up those chunks. Like it never feels like, man, they can't get anything. They're just going, everything's underneath. Like they find a way to push the ball downfield. So maybe that'll work for Deontay. This might be the kiss of death. He's got the Seahawks plus 2.5. So I don't know if you felt strongly that the Seahawks are winning this game or winning the division.
Both. I think I could definitely see the Cardinals having a different game plan, but I don't know. I just trust Mike McDonald here. So yeah, I like this pick for him.
All right.
I'm jealous of it. I wish I could steal it.
Yeah, this might be good news for you. We're all picking the Seahawks plus 2.5 in this game. Maybe it might not be a great thing, but we'll see. And then the last one, he might have done this just to troll you. He did Darnold over, and his last one is Baker Mayfield over 240.5 passing yards. So even though Deontay's under the weather, he's still thinking team content here. The Bucs host the Las Vegas Raiders. Baker Mayfield coming off not a great game, I thought, last week against the Carolina Panthers. 240.5 passing yards. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see it. I don't know. Baker Mayfield, I think he'll definitely try to get it. Baker Mayfield's an ambitious quarterback. He's going to throw it downfield no matter what. I know they do a lot of scheme stuff underneath. So yeah, I could definitely see this happening. I don't know why he's picking all these quarterbacks I hate. I'm surprised he didn't give us a Mac Jones prop.
Yeah. Maybe that one wasn't up on FanDuel yet, so he had to just go with the Seahawks plus 2.5. All right, Deontay's got, to recap, Sam Darnold over 249.5 passing yards. Seahawks plus 2.5 at the Arizona Cardinals, and Baker Mayfield over 240.5 passing yards. I've got Dolphins minus 5.5 over the Jets. Falcons over 20.5 points, their team total. That's plus 102. And then the Bills minus 3.5 at the Los Angeles Rams. Ruiz, what do you got?
I got Bryce Young under 192.5 passing yards, Kirk Cousins over 34.5 pass attempts, and the Bengals over 27.5 points.
The Bryce Young one just feels so mean. Like the guy's finally having a moment where people are like, all right, Bryce Young.
It's too much of a moment. The moment's too big. I've seen too many tweets.
You're like, I'm banging the under here on Bryce Young. All right, so there you go. We will be back Sunday night to recap it all, what should be an exciting Week 14 in the NFL. Thank you to Steven Ruiz. Thank you to Dan Comer for making his Ringer NFL on mic debut and all the work he's doing behind the scenes. Of course, ace producer Christopher Sutton, and production supervision by Conor Nevins and Arjuna Ramgopal. Everyone, enjoy the games. We'll talk to you Sunday night on the Ringer NFL Show.